Hey everybody, good morning. At least when I'm filming this, it's 5 a.m. I've got a cup of coffee. I've already had my shower, washed my hair so it didn't look too messed up on video, relatively speaking. Got a nice cup of coffee, and we're just going to chill a little bit as I talk about Cowboy Chords and boomer bands, a subject I've been wanting to talk a little bit about. You know, a few months ago, there was kind of a internet YouTube conversation about the somewhat pejorative use of the term boomer bands. I guess a younger guy in a band, I wasn't even that familiar with them, but other people seemed to know who he was, made some comment about boomers in their boomer bands or something like that. I guess referring to a lot of classic rock, blues rock type guitar. And that's all right, but I always would stick up for boomer bands because it's basically one of the really traditional idiomatic ways of playing the guitar, particularly electric guitar. And the related term that I kind of wanted to talk about even a little more was cowboy chords. And I've heard that term come up a couple times. And if you look at a lot of videos on YouTube, you'll see a lot of people talk about cowboy chords. Sometimes just like lessons. Here's, learn your G chord, learn your C chord, learn your D chord, campfire song type chords. And that's fine. But sometimes cowboy chords, I thought maybe it was kind of a slam, sort of like the term boomer bands. Not really a slam, but less flattering. So I guess the implication would be I'm not a cowboy. I don't live in 1880. I'm not running around with the cowboy hat and, cowboy boots and spurs. Like Roy Rogers singing into the sunset, I'm not a cowboy, so I don't play cowboy chords. And that is kind of, I don't know, I sort of think maybe the term is invested a little bit in cultural stereotypes. There's actually a pretty good book called Dracula. Some of you might have read it. I know most of you have probably seen some of the movies based on the book. But one of the characters in that book, I believe it was Arthur Holmwood, if I'm not mistaken, but one of the characters in that book, which was written by a man from Ireland, Bram Stoker, who lived a lot of his life in London, one of the characters in his book was an American. And you find out in that book that the Europeans have stereotypes of Americans, just like we have stereotypes of other people. I guess we shouldn't have stereotypes at all, but we have stereotypes, so you might have a stereotype of people from Italy talking a certain way, or people from Russia talking a certain way. When I was a kid, a lot of cartoons would have stereotypes. Boris and Natasha, Bullwinkle Moose, and I remember that one. Just all those stereotypes. Sometimes they veered into being inappropriate by today's standards, but they were kind of fun to watch. But in that book, Dracula, one of the characters is an American, and you see a sort of Victorian English stereotype of Americans that were all kind of cowboys. Like, he was actually kind of a heroic figure. He was an admirable man, but he was also like a cowboy, and he very much was different than the kind of Victorian learned, educated, in some cases noble Victorians who made up the rest of the novel. He kind of stuck out as, he talked like he talked like a cowboy from Texas. But anyway, I was wondering if that term cowboy chords has anything to do with that. But cowboy chords are basically open chords on the guitar, and I made a couple notes about it. Sometimes I listen to new music, and I don't listen to it very often, quite frankly, and I'm always hesitant to say I don't think it's very good, but a lot of what I hear I don't think is very good, and there are a lot of reasons for that. I could blame a lot of things, But I actually think the business end of it, or just culture's changing. But sometimes I blame it on young people. Not, I don't blame it on young people, but I do blame it on the culture in which younger people are raised in which they don't often gain exposure to a lot of the music that was written with what we might call cowboy chords. Because if you think about it, when you learn music, you learn it from a young age. So we sing the ABC song when we're little kids. And that's actually a cowboy chord song. I've got my guitar out here. I don't want to bump this nice A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. Those are cowboy chords. The little songs you might sing, say, in a church. Like I grew up singing, Jesus loves me, this I know. Those are cowboy chords. Lavender blue, dilly dilly, lavender green. Those are the songs, and kids hear those songs, and they're not. Cowboy chords isn't a bad term per se, but if you think about it, if it means that open chords on an acoustic guitar like G chord, C chord, D chord, E chord, all the main chords that we learn when we first learn, if you're just kind of writing those off dismissively as cowboy chords, then I think that says something about the state of music today. Cowboy chords weren't be a descriptive term, kind of like, blues licks. If I say, these are blues licks, or these are jazz runs, or, or something like that, that's just sort of a descriptive term. And if that's what they mean by cowboy chords, that's just yet another descriptive term in our musical vocabulary. But if it's kind of just dismissing acoustic guitar and electric guitar type open chords as some sort of archaic, boomer or historic style of playing music, then I think that goes to the fact that music is in disarray and decline, because you can't play music on a guitar, really traditional music, without cowboy chords. You know what? There's cowboy chords in Bach. D. Minuet and G. I listen to a lot of those minuets, and I played piano for years. I still do. In fact, I got to leave for church in a little bit. But a lot of those minuets have an A section and a B section. And I used to flat pick a lot of fiddle tunes like Salt Creek, and they all have an A section and a B section too. And a lot of those old fiddle tunes, which many times go right back to Scots Irish or British music or other places in Europe, but they also have an A and B section, and they're all kind of cowboy chord songs. But so you can play like Salt Creek, or you can play Bach, D. That's I used to play a fair amount of classical guitar. I don't think I ever did it quite right, but I played it, pretty seriously anyway at different times. Excuse me. When I made that Cat Stevens video the other day, Mona Bones Jacone, I put a little bit of acoustic guitar in the background. I hid the video of me playing it so you can't see me playing, but you can kind of hear it. And I decided I liked that, and it was kind of chill. And I said, man, I need to make a morning video drinking my coffee. I need to quit these things. But make a morning video drinking my coffee, just kind of chill. You can listen to it in your car or whatever. But Bach is cowboy chords. Hymns are cowboy chords. Amazing Grace. I mean, if you take cowboy chords out of music, you don't have much left. And the other thing is a lot of our sense of melodies melodies that we hear when we're little kids come out of what you might call cowboy chords. Cowboy chords is not just a song for Red River Valley, home on the range type songs. It's all the really, you think about it, cowboy chords are all the open chords on the neck. Let me see my notes here. But a lot of times maybe cowboys chords are associated with country music, and country music is good music. I tend to like older country, but I certainly grew up with a lot of rock, and I think a lot of the rock I grew up with would today get tossed into country music. And one thing I like about country music now, at least a little bit, is some of the songs I think it has a commercial edge I don't like, the sort of corporate Nashville, but I will give it this. It's one place you can still hear a lot of good guitar playing. Wish they had more fiddles and banjos and things in music like they used to, but it's nonetheless, it is one place where the guitar is still kind of the king instrument, which is good. But you had in years ago there was country western, and then there was always also folk music. And if you think about it, country was cowboy chords, and that kind of came out of the South. And then there was western, and that was kind of cowboy chords. I guess cowboys are out west, so that western music might be the most straightforward interpretation of cowboy chords. So you'd have like, from this valley they say you are going, and or you had folk, like this land is your land. Let's see, I'm gonna do another key. This land is your land. This land. They're all the same, basically the same kind of. They're all basically the same kind of guitar playing, same kind of music. You might have a little different flavor. Like there was sort of a flavor of music that came out of the South, a flavor of music that came out of the West, and a lot of what we call folk music, if you think about it, came out of the Midwest and the Northeast, and it's all great, and it's all kind of American music, by the way. It's just different regions and flavors of similar music, and all those songs also had great lyrics. They told stories, they connected with people, they had traditional songwriting idioms like a verse and a chorus. But I got to thinking about that term cowboy chords, and to the extent it's a dismissive term, like I'm not a cowboy, I don't live 100 years ago, I think people are really missing the boat, because cowboy chords are the building block of the guitar. Like if you don't know your open chords, or you don't really think that way, that's not in your DNA, you're really missing something on guitar. And I also think you're missing a lot about songs. One of the things I think is happened to music today is a lot of it's production. Everything's done with click tracks and Pro Tools and all kinds of overdubbing. You wonder if some of these people are ever in the room at the same time to play, like in the old days. But if you don't have these so-called cowboy chords, in a way you can't play songs. You think about it, hymns. You can play hymns with cowboy chords. It's church music. And it doesn't have to be I Saw the Light by Hank Williams type church music. I mean, Old Rugged Cross, Holy Holy. You can play all those hymns are cowboy chord. I mean, they have traditional chords, not kind of atmospheric John Mayer overtones running all over the place, but traditional chords where there's a melody and the chord accompaniment, which that goes back to waltzes and like I said, minuets. That's not hokey dokey. That's songwriting 101. But you got hymns, childhood songs, nursery school rhymes, lullabies. You've got all the folk music, popular songs, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Any of those songs, some of them, the piano had a big influence in music too, obviously. And we shouldn't forget the piano. And sometimes I think songs written on a piano have a little different sensibility in terms of musical chording structure, because some of the idioms of the piano are somewhat different. So a lot of songs like Somewhere Over the Rainbow, or Just so many were no doubt written on a piano back in the heyday of the piano. But I'm telling you, if you don't know your cowboy chords and you don't think like that, I don't care how well you can shred or maybe you think I'm culturally not a cowboy. I'm not of that background. I'm not of, I'm whatever. I'm an urban person. And there's just sort of a stereotype you're catering to. But if you don't know all those cowboy chords, it's sort of like you don't know guitar, and that would be, those cowboy chords are the building block of the guitar. They are the building block of the guitar. So sometimes I think that's true too about learning guitar. Look, I've got this book, Cowboy and Western Songs. The cover came off. It used to have kind of a nice cover. But look, it's all full of cowboy songs. Those are the songs of American history. Was it Alan Lomax? I've got a book in my office at work called Alan Lomax Folk Songs of North America. Cecil Sharp. Those were scholars that compiled all these folk songs. But I want to say a little bit about cowboy chords in conjunction with the guitar, because this is my old harmony. Now, you see me. I've talked about this in a couple of the videos. This was the guitar I learned on. I bought this one off eBay, but it was just like this, and I didn't see of all the harmonies you see like for sale and things, old used beater harmonies. I didn't see this one around, but I looked, and this is the kind of harmony I had, and my parents bought it for me for my 6th grade birthday. I still remember walking up the stairs and kind of seeing it in the room. Of course, it didn't come with the case, Maybe it did come with the case that fell apart like in two months of my 6th grade abuse to the instrument. But anyway, I remember seeing it kind of resting on a chair. And I knew I didn't want to let the cat out of the bag, but I said, I'm getting a guitar for my birthday. Awesome, and that was a life-changing moment looking back on it. I played a lot of piano at that time, and I was actually kind of a good piano player, if I do say so myself, and still play a lot of piano. But the guitar, being given the guitar was great, and I started learning a lot of people like John Denver right away. I started playing it, and they also gave me a book that went with it. And it had stuff like They Call the Wind Mariah. And I remember, this thing's so out of tune, but I remember I didn't even know that song really, but one of the songs in there was that song They Call the Wind Mariah, and it went, way out there you got a name for rain and wind and fire. The rain is test, the fire Joe, and they call the wind Mariah. And the only reason I ever picked that song at all was because it had a G chord for like the 2/3 of the first verse of the song, and so I could play that one pretty well. I'll show you on this nice PRS. Way up there, let's see. Way up there, they got a name for rain and wind and fire. The rain is test, the fire Joe. And that's a cowboy chord, by the way. That was sung by Clint Eastwood, believe it or not. The rain is test, the fire's Joe. But I got that, and it just had that G chord. That was like literally the first thing I ever learned. Because I saw it in that book, and it had that G chord like for a page and a half, and it was actual song, So I would just play it way up there. But you know what? It taught me like to play rhythm, and also even before I could change chords, I got that kind of alternating pattern. And I'm telling you, that's cowboy chords. I don't think a lot of younger players do that. That alternating pattern, where you alternate, and those are in idioms. Bach do 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 do, where you walk the bass. So a lot of the guitar playing today is so fancy, but you wonder if they could just kind of play a nice little chording accompaniment. Walk the bass, That's Bach. Do 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 But you wonder, like things like those alternating patterns, all that gets into your DNA, and you grow up hearing that. And if you don't grow up and hear that, and you try to go learn that in your music school or whatever when you're 20 years old, and you've never even really grown up with like the ABC song, you know, whatever. You've never grown up with all these really traditional songs, or church songs, school songs. You know, my parents knew a lot of those old schoolhouse songs, like I don't know, just like school, high school days, good old golden rule days. I remember my dad singing that. I think he actually went to a little one-room school in Upper Michigan, which I think was there till the 50s, maybe, like literally a one-room school where they had K through 12 in one little building. And you know what? There were some great people that came out of that little one-room school. It was kind of like early America. That school probably wouldn't even be legal today. It would be uncertified, this, that. You know, they had a wood-burning stove in there. I'm sure they broke a bunch of fire codes. It was a little a building, you know. But let me tell you something. They had good teachers, and there was something really good about those little one-room schools. But they sang all those songs. And when you learn those songs, they kind of marinate in your brain. And Elvis... You know, Elvis brought all that together. That's why Elvis is so important. He took country music, Western music, folk music, and a lot of gospel music, African-American music, which is obviously, needless to say, just outrageously great and so important in our American history heritage. But it also had some different flavors, you know, some different rhythms and things. But it was all kind of, it was all kind of based on, like a lot of those spirituals, they were cowboy chords too, like, when Israel was in Egypt's land, let my people. I mean, all that stuff is quote unquote cowboy chords. And if cowboy chords means just open chords on the neck. And I see a lot of younger guitar players. And I feel like sometimes I feel like some of these players, their first guitar wasn't a beater like this, where they learned a G chord. Their first guitar was some electric Squire, and their first lesson was how to shred up on the 15th fret, you know. And then, and that's cool. There's some amazing technical players that come out of that. But if you don't have that, you got to have that background for songs. And, you know, if you can't play a song, then what's the point of playing a guitar if you think about it? I mean, if you can't play a song, the song is an instrument primarily that accompanies the voice. It's also kind of like a violin that, you know, it's a solo instrument. And I love my lead guitar and guitar solos and things like that myself. And do a lot, but you know, ultimately the guitar is an instrument that accompanies the voice. And so if your first guitar was some Squire shredder, you know, pack, you know, with little amp and distortion, and you never even maybe really learned a G chord. And you know, sometimes you wonder if these kids even grow up with like simple hymns, simple lullabies, simple nursery rhymes. And the other thing about a lot of that, when I was a kid, and I'm sure for millions of others and people older than I am, that was kind of a shared heritage. So the culture kind of had a shared heritage of melodies and little tunes and all the lyrics and kind of the humor and the stories and the wit that went along with a lot of those old simple little cowboy chord type songs. But also the sort of the melodic conventions of that kind of music. So if you're not playing, if you get a guitar and you don't ever play a G chord, that's really limiting. And there's so much rock and roll. I love rock, but like CCR, so much great rock and roll was done with those cowboy chords on electric guitar. I guess that's what the Byrds and a lot of, you know, folk rock was basically taking folk music and playing playing it on electric guitar. And, when Dylan went electric, he was basically taking a lot of folk music and playing it on electric guitar. I think he was actually too loud at first. That's one reason that was kind of controversial. But, so there's so many examples like that. And, a lot of R&B was kind of old gospel and blues coming out of the African-American community, played with electric guitar. But you can't play the great music that's been if you can't play quote unquote cowboy chords. So I actually think it's more than just the flavor, or you say tomato, I say tomato. I don't like that kind of music. I like this kind of music type thing. I actually think it goes to how we learn the guitar, and even more profoundly, how we process music in our brains. Because if you just hear like major and minor chords, traditional guitar chords, and you just think, and maybe that alternating bass and some of those patterns that went with it, and you just think that, those are cowboy chords, sounds like John Wayne on the Rio Grande or something. I can almost tell you right now, you probably don't know any songs. You might know jams, you might know compositions by, but I sort of don't think you could play a lot of songs. I mean, actual songs, like with the verse and the chorus. And I think that's one of the things that's happened to music today. And I think we're raising generations of kids who aren't exposed to that kind of music. In a lot of parts of the world, maybe people aren't exposed to that kind of music. But we have a great, very highly evolved tradition of music in the West, if I want to use that term. I don't know if that's a great term, but we do. I mean, we have a Western scale. We have, and all those things come out of hundreds and hundreds of years of evolution of music and our instruments. I sometimes think too, a lot of the newer guitars, people don't like those 7.25 neck radius guitars, but they're great for open chords. And I sometimes think if you buy a guitar and your first thought is, how can I shred on this thing? How can I do sweeping arpeggios? And meanwhile, you can't play a G chord on the damn thing. You're kind of putting the cart before the horse. And if you think about it, shredding and a lot of those things, they're not songs. And music culturally, the power of music has always been in songs, the way they connect with people, the stories they often tell. And so a lot of those stereotypes of cowboy chords, I don't really buy into. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with being a cowboy, Clint Eastwood, High Plains Drifter, Clint Eastwood, The Outlaw Josie Wales, Clint Eastwood, perhaps my favorite movie, For a Few Dollars More, with Lee Van Cleef. Lee Van Cleef might be the only guy that ever could give Clint Eastwood a run for his money and being cool. I mean, Lee Van Cleef was badass. He just was, and both those guys were quiet. You wouldn't get 3 words in a row out of either of them, but man alive, don't mess with them. But there's nothing wrong with cowboys in the West. And that is, if you think about it, part of American myth. I know we tear down every myth ever, and then you know what? These people tear everything down, then they don't have anything left. It's like these empty pedestals, or they put up something ghastly. They take these gorgeous statues that were some of the nicest statues in the world. They take them down, and in some cases they're vandalized, destroyed, or tossed in some garbage area with old used tires and rusted cars. These are some of the finest statues, and then they replace it with nothing, or something that looks like shit. It doesn't have half the artistic excellence or historical value. And I sometimes think that's what's going to happen to music. We're going to, we don't like cowboy, and we replace it with nothing. And, we get AI music now. Maybe that'll be the future. It'll be like Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I haven't read that book in a long time, but one of the things I remember reading that book I think I was a kid when I read that book, actually. But one of the things that stuck with me all those years ago out of reading that book was how they had a sort of machine that made artificial music, and it was sort of it wasn't just like, okay, we have technology to help us play better music. That's good. We all benefit from good technology and music. But this was different than that. It was something like the people had lost some part of their humanity that makes music, and you wonder, the people in that world couldn't have even really heard or understood music the same way, because music is one of those things that you kind of grow up. It's like a language. Music is like a language. And you learn language from birth, and I don't just mean playing music, but hearing music, even like understanding it kind of intuitively. It's just kind of, tunes. The Beatles had that. The Beatles, Paul McCartney and John Lennon, they knew so many songs. By the way, you can't play Beatles without Cowboy Chords. You know that, right? Stones, all those early Stones songs. So a lot of those blues songs were in E, A, and a lot of times G too, but open chords. So yeah, I'm a big defender, not of cowboy music, but of cowboy chords. And if cowboy chords means open chords, my goodness, and if you don't like those open chords, that'd be kind of like saying, well, I'm going to play the piano, I'm going to, do all this stuff, and then someone says, hey, Joe's turning 70 this week, can you play Happy Birthday? And you go, Happy Birthday, do you have the music for no, I need some time to learn it, Happy Birthday, because your brain's not set up, you never, that it's kind of like the firm foundation of everything that comes after on guitar comes out of those open chords. If you don't know those open chords, you're missing everything on guitar. And if your first guitar was some electric guitar and you started shredding right away, you might be a great guitar player. I'm not. But to me, I will always wonder if you can play a lot of songs, actual songs, where you can sit down and play a song like with the verse, chorus, because cowboy chords are open chords. The other thing about cowboy chords is they reflect standard tuning, and those open chords kind of came along right around with standard tuning, and the way standard tuning is set up on a guitar is kind of complements all those first position chords. And you need to know those, and you should learn a lot of those songs. I mean, for sure. So this is kind of a chill video. I just thought I'd make a long one, let myself ramble. And when I listened to that Cat Stevens one, I had put some acoustic guitar in the background, and it was just kind of quiet, and I decided I really liked that. And I'm going to make a video like that, and you could just kind of chill, maybe even listen to it in your car or something like that. But cowboy chords, call them what you want. I mean, in some ways, that's not a very good term, because I think that reflects kind of a style, but they are great. And if you don't know, I'm going to call them open chords. Those are like the first lessons on guitar. And you can't play songs without those chords. Literally, you can't play songs without those chords. So, my defense of cowboy chords has come to an end. Happy coffee day. Man, if I don't get coffee in the morning, forget it. I mean, I'll drop everything and go find some. But I'm about ready for another cup. I've got to go to play for church, play piano. I wouldn't be able to do that. It's not hard for me, actually. But you know what? I've also played the piano a long time, and I wouldn't be able to do that if I hadn't been raised around a lot of music. And it's not complicated, but it is a background. And it gets in your head first, and then it can get into your fingers and all that muscle memory that goes into playing music. Piano is the same as guitar. Thanks. God bless. I'm gonna make more kind of chill videos like this, just talk about things. If nobody watches them, that's fine, but I'm just gonna make them anyway. I started this channel during the pandemic. They closed everything down. I didn't do that. I didn't say close everything down, so it was like Dawn of the Dead for a year. So I started this channel, and I'm actually pretty damn glad I did. Thanks. God bless. Cowboy Chords. If you're a young person and you don't know those chords and you're focusing all your time on shredding, gear, get yourself an acoustic guitar and an old book of cowboy songs or hymns or fiddle tunes or show tunes or popular music. So some of those songs written with show tunes on the piano have some. They're still quite typically open chord type songs, but when they're written on the piano, that's where I think you started to see a lot of nice diminished chords and things like that, which are so beautiful. And of course, they have those on the guitar, but I think they kind of come out of a lot of the piano music. But man, if you're not playing those, you are, and it's not, you are lacking in a very basic part of musicianship. And I actually don't think it goes the other way around. Like if you can play really well all those songs on the open part of the neck, but you can't shred, that's better than if you can shred but you can't play a G chord. Not everybody every guitar player should be able to play a G chord, a CCR song, because those are basic songs that are central to the idioms of this beautiful, mysterious, ever-evolving, but actually very old instrument we call the guitar. One of the gifts of God and humanity to the world, the guitar. And if you don't know all those open chords, cowboy chords, you're missing out. Man, 37 minutes. I'm going to stop. Thank you. God bless.